What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another kind of pay-per-viewpoint episode of the Smark Moment Smack Talk podcast. We say that because it's not really a pay-per-view, but it effectively is. We'll explain why that's the case in a moment. First off, if you don't know who's talking, I'm Tony Mango, joined as always by Callum Wiggins.
Hello.
Maybe I'm not. And Robert D. Felice.
Hello.
So I said it's kind of a pay-per-view point because here's the situation. I mean, even when we get the whole, we had been doing pay-per-view point for all these years. When they switched over to premium live event, we weren't going to call it premium live event point or whatever the hell it was. But Saturday night's main event is happening this weekend. You know exactly when it's happening. You guessed it correctly, Friday morning. And they are not officially calling this a pay-per-view. This is, going to be, for anybody who's unaware of what Saturday night's main event has been in the past, it is a television special. So it is effectively kind of like a bonus episode of SmackDown, essentially. It's going to be 2 hours from 8 to 10. It's going to air on NBC, and it's going to stream on Peacock. So you can kind of call it a pay-per-view. It's sort of just like in that middle ground range where, similar to how like NXT will do like Halloween Havoc, and it won't be a pay-per-view, but it'll be a special episode of that TV show. This is just an extra bonus one on top of that. So we're treating it as a pay-per-view in a lot of different ways. That's why we're doing a separate little predictions thing instead of just looping it in with the hot tags and doing something else. There are 5 matches on this card. We don't know right now what one of the matches is going to be, because we aren't going to know that until on SmackDown when they do the semifinals for this tournament. So we'll address that in a moment too, but they added some different little tweaks to the menu on the episode of Raw from last night. So thankfully we waited to do our predictions until after that. So we do know these 5 matches. I cannot imagine that they're going to add anything else to this because they only have these 2 hours. So if they are going to cram 5 matches into this, the likelihood that they're going to do more than that is pretty low. These matches would have to be very quick for them to include other things, because they also, I'm pretty sure that they have commercial breaks as per usual. And if that is happening too, you mean to tell me that they're going to have more than 5 matches when they have less than 2 hours? It's not going to happen.
Hey man, why can't they just be short matches?
They can be, but I don't think that we're going to get like 6-minute matches. I'm assuming that we're going to get the usual standard, roughly 10 to 15. I don't think we're going to get anything that's going to be in that like 20 something range. But even then, you've got to figure there's, on an average hour-long TV show, it's something around like 15 to 22 minutes worth of commercials, depending on a bunch of different other factors with broadcasting. So if you take 15 minutes off each, that's a half hour. You got an hour and a half left to do all the promotional stuff that they're going to do, all the video packages, all the backstage promos or anything. Let's take a half hour off of that. You have 1 hour for the matches. And then those 5 matches, 10, 15 minutes a piece, that already covers that whole thing. So if we do get anything else added, I think it'll be just kind of a quick promo segment of some sort. Maybe to deal with the bloodline, maybe not. But there are 5 matches on here, so we're going to break them down. We're going to talk about what we think is going to happen, what we're excited about, what we're not excited about, all that usual good stuff. And if you are not brand new to this podcast, then you know some of the other things I'm about to say. We also always want to know what you have to say. So drop your thoughts on the Discord channel, or on Facebook, or on Twitter, or if you are on YouTube, then leave those comments below. Hit that like button on this video, double check you are subscribed, ring that notification bell, get that email alert for when we go live for what will be a post show immediately following Saturday night's main event. And of course, click on that join button, get access to the same stuff as the Patreon, show your support on the monetary side of things, and help us keep this ship afloat. We got the $+ tiers, different things. And if you're on the $5 and up tiers, then you get early access to different content. So when we do things like our end of the year awards, when we record that in advance and I upload them and schedule them out, you'll be able to check them out the day that we upload them, as opposed to having to wait. And that's, Darkcast tier, you get access to the Darkcast, same kind of stuff. It's all pretty much laid out there and pretty bog standard. Redbubble and TeePublic is where you get merchandise. Keep that in mind too if you want to pick anything up like that. And let's bounce back around. Let's actually talk about the card itself. Now, we know these 5 matches. We don't know the order of what these matches are going to be, but I'm going to put it out there and I'm going to say that I think that the first match that we're going to see is going to be the triple threat for the World Heavyweight Championship. I think that they want to start off with a bang and like a very important match, so a title match. And I don't think that they're necessarily going to want to start off with a women's match because I think they're going to kind of like do men's, women's, men's, women's, men's, kind of balance that out a little bit. But now this whole Gunther defending the title against Finn Balor thing changed last night to include Damian Priest. We were talking about this being the potential for the Netflix debut of Raw or for the Saturday night's main event in January or on the Royal Rumble even. And they just said, let's just skip right to it. So
that makes me think right off the bat that they rushed it and now they have a bigger plan for the Rumble, because it really felt like they were just going to have the singles match, have Priest get involved, and then push it to whatever big show you wanted to do it on. But they rushed it, and now I'm thinking, I wonder what that means for January and beyond.
3 shows that they pretty much should be booking something for Gunther. And
well,
over the course of a month and a half, kind of at this point, those 3 matches are like they're options for them. They could do the CM Punk match. They could do a match with Seth Rollins. They could do a number 1 contenders thing on the Netflix episode that leads to the January 25th episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. I'm just noticing a thing on Wikipedia that's a typo. Tournament. Whoever typed that out just made me laugh. They could do all sorts of different things, and we also don't even know how this transfer window thing is going to work.
That's okay. That's what I wanted to get into. I think that might be why they're rushing it.
Now, is that something that you've been aware of, Callum? Because I know that you're outside of watching all that stuff, and it wasn't something that they made a huge deal out of. But do you know what's going on with that?
I know there's this quote-unquote transfer window thing.
So far, if I have all my information correct from what they've announced and what they've implied, at least, they had Chad Gable say, hey, the transfer window is opening soon. And then they've had Carmelo Hayes say that, like, oh, what this transfer window, like, I might just go to Raw. And there's supposed to be somebody that fights Carmelo on SmackDown this week, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is on the SmackDown roster going forward. It kind of seemed a little bit to me like it's like a first look or like a let's see if like do we test them out kind of a thing. They've not really revealed a whole lot of information of when this transfer window opens, when's it close.
It is open.
It's open now?
No. Okay. So they had Chad Gable do that, and then they immediately had Michael Cole say, transfer window's open. You're going to start to see things shaking up. And one of the things that we did see on the shows, and I don't know if you've even caught a lot of this, Tony, because I know that you're spaced out half the time watching these things, but Gunther was on SmackDown already.
Right.
And Cody was on Raw.
And Tiffany Stratton was backstage on Raw this week.
And Dominic was on SmackDown as well. And I think, especially because they brought this up with the entire idea of, hey, Raw's going to Netflix, so we want to shake things up. I think there's a good chance that by the beginning of the year, Gunther's on SmackDown, Cody's on Raw.
That could very well happen. What's weird about it, though, is this is the first time that they're doing something like this and calling attention to it as like a potential big thing, because we don't know how big it's going to be. We don't know if this is going to be basically the equivalent of like a mini draft.
I think so.
If it's going to just basically be like, you know, a handful of names, because it's going to include NXT as well. And we know that SmackDown is going to get a third hour from at least January until May. So you got to add more people to the roster.
Who said that?
Who?
Has that been like confirmed?
Pretty sure it's been confirmed.
That's been confirmed for months.
No, I know it's been talked about, but has WWE actually said SmackDown's getting a third hour?
I don't think that they've announced it, but it's been spoken of in a way that seems like it is.
It's gonna go 3 hours.
I'm gonna hold my
Trust
breath
me,
until it does.
by January, both Raw and SmackDown will be 3 hours long.
What if you know what? I hate that idea. Okay.
I'm not the biggest fan of it either, but if they're going to include people from NXT and they're going to include people from Raw and SmackDown being able to be traded over, there's an implication that people from Raw and SmackDown could go down to NXT, and that there are people that are going to get the call up earlier than they normally would be. There could be, like, maybe this is even the way that they do something like bring in like a Jordan Grace and just be like, oh, hey, it's not a part of the actual transfer between rosters, but we got this new signing or something. They could play around with this quite a bit.
The guy that's fighting Kamala Hayes this week is Pentagon, right? It's obviously Pentagon.
I would think that it would be Pentagon too, and that would be not Pentagon 2, like the number 2, but Pentagon as well.
We don't know what type it's going to be
him.
So.
Yeah, I would think it would be him, but that also, if they open up the door in that way, then that definitely opens up the floodgates for other people outside of the Raw, SmackDown, and NXT rosters too. At that point, they would just be like, all right, look, it's the whole rosters are going to get a potential shakeup. We aren't going to announce most likely as many people as we necessarily need. And we don't know when the transfer window is going to close either. I think that they're going to play this pretty loose and just sort of let people move around between rosters and then settle around Royal Rumble time a little bit after Royal Rumble. And then that way they can go, all right, well, if we want Cody on Raw and Gunther on SmackDown, then we're probably going to move Ludwig Kaiser over and keep Tiffany Stratton, because Kaiser and Stratton are a couple. They don't have to necessarily, but they try to put those people together. And if you move Cody over to Raw, depending on who he would feud with going forward, do you move the Bloodline over? Do you move Randy Orton? Do you keep Kevin Owens on SmackDown? Do you move Kevin Owens from SmackDown over to continue feuding with Cody? I hope not. We'll talk about that a little bit, though. You would assume as well that they wouldn't change over too many other championships, but if they move, for instance, the World Heavyweight Championship over, uniformity would kind of dictate that they would have to move the Women's World Championship over. And
they don't always do that, and the new names of the belts have given them that wiggle room where, towards the end of the Ruthless Aggression era, you did have the World Tag Team Champions on the same brand as the WWE Champion. I prefer the uniformity, like you, but they don't necessarily have to do that.
It's not like the Raw and SmackDown tag titles or something where it's like, okay, the Raw Women's Championship needs to be on Raw. So they can play around with that a little bit too, but then that's also kind of strange if they move, for instance, they don't have to move the United States and the Intercontinental Championships over, but it would be very weird if after crowning this Women's United States Champion, then that moved over to Raw and Raw had the Intercontinental title for the men. And I hope that they plan this out well, and I hope that they do it in a way that opens up some new feuds and kind of refreshes the roster a little bit. But Gunther needs to get away from certain people. Certain other people need to get, I want Damian Priest away from Finn Balor at this point. And I don't know if I necessarily need Gunther to move anywhere, but I want him to have some more variety of options. So whether it's like Gunther and Cody stay where they are and some other people shuffle around, or Gunther moves and that's where we get the, Gunther and LA Knight against each other instead of Gunther and Priest or something. No matter what happens with this transfer window, I think we're looking at Gunther retaining over Balor and Priest. And I think that there's a plan in place for something to change with Gunther, whether that's he's moving to SmackDown and we're going to get away from Balor and Damian Priest, and that's why we need to just rush and do this. Or, well, come January, Gunther's moving on to feud with, I don't know, if it's if we kept the rosters exactly the same that they are right now, then somebody on Raw. I don't even know who he would feud with.
Seth Rollins?
Could be Rollins, could be Punk, could be, I don't know. Maybe Ilya Dragunov might be ready to return or something for all I know. I'm going to go with, there's a good chance that Gunther switches, but no matter what happens, Gunther's retaining here.
I'd like to see them throw Finn Balor a bone, but not at the expense of Gunther. You know, like I would like to see Finn Balor eventually get a chance to be some type of world champion, but Gunther's too hot right now to just switch the title off of him just because. And I'm with you. I'd like to see Damian and Finn as far the fuck away from each other as humanly possible, but who knows? Maybe they're going to keep feuding until Mania.
Ugh.
But I'm going to go Gunther wins here.
Yeah, the choice to move to a triple is more interesting at the very least because you knew that if it was going to be Gunther and Finn Balor one-on-one, that Priest was just going to get involved anyway. It would just be a repeat of Gunther's previous matches with Damian Priest, just with the roles reversed between Balor and Priest. So at least the triple threat means that they're all going to be involved. It's probably going to be a more interesting match, a more dynamic match, and Gunther gets to pin one of them. And, you know, they'll continue their feud because they haven't had a blow-off match one-on-one yet that they want to cling on to, and that'll probably be the catalyst for the dissolution of Judgment Day in general. But yes, Gunther has to retain this here just to get that in place. And yeah, whether he moves to SmackDown and finds some new opponents or stays on Raw, this will probably be him out of the Judgment Day loop for the time being.
I had been saying before that I thought that there was a chance that we could see the Wyatt 6 versus the Judgment Day at WrestleMania. And after they lost the Final Testament on Raw, I'm like, I don't think at this point that that's going to be a priority. So it's all hovering around that unknown thing now for me, where we don't know what is happening with this transfer window, and that could play a big factor in some different things, but
they don't know what's happening either. I
don't think that they really know.
I would
they're
venture a guess that outside of like 3 major changes that they need, which is probably Cody and Roman to Raw and, you know, Gunther to SmackDown, I don't think that they know a lot of what they want to do. But maybe, you know, maybe this is like, hey, we don't want to wait till the night after Mania to call up Roxanne. We need Roxanne now. It's been long enough. There's nothing she's going to need to be around for Stand and Deliver for.
And it's a little bit suspicious. Maybe we'll see something that happens tonight that changes my mind about it. But Obafemi won the Iron Survivor Challenge, and he and Julia are both getting their title shots at NXT New Year's Evil, which is happening on January 7th. So we could very easily be looking at Trick Williams moving up and Roxanne moving up, or one or the other, or both. I mean, like, they could both just stick around in NXT. It could be anything, but now that's looking a little bit more likely of a possibility that Roxy and Trick could end up moving up. And if it's not Penta that fights Carmelo Hayes, maybe it's Trick.
Yeah.
It could be like, well, I got somebody in mind that can fight you, and I'm taking a look at this Trick Williams guy, and by the time we get to him losing the title to Obafemi, he could already be a part of the roster. It could just be one of those times where they've transitioned it like that. It's not my favorite. I like when they drop the title first, but Viking Raiders have won tag titles, then dropped it in the middle of the ring in NXT after moving up to the main roster. Asuka moved up to the main roster as champion. Indy Hartwell kind of did, I think, if I remember correctly.
She was injured, so it didn't count.
Yeah, that's a little bit different story, but they've done it a few times here and there. So I think the Street Profits actually might have too. Now I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Point being, this is going to be way more interesting to me than what I thought we were going to get going into Saturday night's main event, because that also could have a big factor in who wins this tournament final for the inaugural WWE Women's United States Championship. Now, we are going to get the 2 semifinals matches on SmackDown this week. It's going to be Bayley against Chelsea Green and Michin against Tiffany Stratton. So I am assuming it's Bayley versus Tiffany Stratton in the finals. It could just be Chelsea Green versus Michin, though. You never know. But I'm assuming Bayley and Tiffany Stratton. And then with that in mind, they can move the rosters around. They can do whatever it is. I still don't think Tiffany Stratton is going to win this because she is holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. So Bayley becomes the number one favorite for me. She sets the tone. She's an established world champion already. They give her the US title. She drops it to somebody by the time at least WrestleMania is over with, if not prior to that. And then I think anybody else that's in the mix here could potentially even be on the Raw roster in no time. Bayley could be in the Raw roster like that too, for all we know.
I had been saying that I thought it was going to be Bayley the whole time, but they had Bayley do a digital exclusive last night talking about how she's watching Raw and maybe she'll be on Raw. And now that I think about it, the entire build of this tournament, they have had a lot of run-ins with Michin and Chelsea, stemming from the whole dumpster match bit and all of that. So wouldn't be surprised if it was Chelsea and Michin, but I'm kind of with you, and I think the bigger match is Bayley versus Tiffany, and at that point, I don't see Tiffany holding the briefcase and the women's US title. So I'm going to guess Bayley gets it, but maybe we're wrong and we're talking on Friday about Michin versus Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean, my gut instinct when the tournament was announced that Bayley was going to win, because it gives the United Championship a lot of credibility straight off the bat by putting it on someone who has a definitive crowd connection and a strong reputation behind her. So having her hold the title immediately would lend more weight to whoever ends up beating her for the title and can carry on the title's legacy from that point onwards. Although I think it would be a smart move to put the title on Tiffany Stratton, just because, ever since she's won the briefcase, she has suffered quite significantly with the natural course of things in Money in the Bank briefcase holders, of pretty much losing every match and feud that she's part of, and being Nia Jax's understudy. She very much held the United States Championship as well as the briefcase, because we've seen it before. We've seen RVD hold both the Intercontinental title and Money in the Bank briefcase. The Miz hold both the United States title and the Money in the Bank briefcase. So it's not heard of for someone to hold a mid-card title and the Money in the Bank. So I think Bayley will win, because they'll do the more kind of the celebratory, Triple H will be shuffled out into the ring. I know he doesn't want to be in the spotlight anymore, but he's gonna come back out the ring. He's gonna hand him the United States Championship, and it'll be a big celebration with Bayley involved rather than Tiffany Stratton. So yeah, that's my choice to win the title.
Now, if it does come down to Chelsea Green versus Michin, because it's not going to be Chelsea versus Tiffany, and I don't think it's going to be Bayley versus Michin, although that's the third likely possibility. If it does come down to Chelsea Green versus Michin, then I think all three of us are in agreement it should be Chelsea.
It kind of goes against what Callum just said about the happy celebration, but I would probably go with Chelsea.
I wouldn't say it necessarily should be Chelsea. I think it probably will be Chelsea, but I probably would. As I said, I'd go with. I think making Chelsea the first champion is a little bit odd, because it kind of sets that title as a bit of a joke championship.
Yeah,
because as I say, Chelsea. We know that Chelsea takes serious bumps, and we know that she can be a good wrestler and have good matches, but her character is a joke character on TV.
Absolutely.
So her winning is basically it's like you want to crown a first men's champion or whatever, and it's Santino gets it or something along those lines, or
R-Truth.
could be like a modern day thing, R-Truth or Carlito gets the first title. It's I'm not saying that Chelsea actually, because she is one of the more entertaining characters on TV, but I don't think it works as the first champion. In which case, I would, if it was between Michin and Chelsea Green, I'd say the stronger choice is to go with Michin first and have Chelsea win it later down the line.
So I think that's going to be the second match. of the show. I think the first match you start off with the triple threat for the world title. Gunther retains. It's like, boo. And then it's like, oh, yay. Not only did we get a title change, but a babyface one. And then I think we move over to Sami Zayn versus Drew McIntyre. This is just a regular singles match. Nothing's on the line. There are no gimmicks attached to it whatsoever. And I'm pretty firmly in the camp that Drew McIntyre is going to win this. I don't know where they're going to build him to and what that future feud is going to be coming out of this, but I think Drew being the guy that just returned and, not only just being the bigger name and all that other kind of stuff, he is the guy that I think is going to walk out here. And whether that ends up being something that leads to something very cool or it just continues and they just have a feud that lingers for the rest of January and all remains to be seen. But I think we could also see a rematch of this either on the Netflix debut or on the next Saturday night's main event where they throw a gimmick into that one. Maybe we get like a street fight. Maybe we get something else. I don't know. But I think Drew McIntyre winning this first one is pretty solid of a pick.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say the match never starts.
That's a possibility too. Yeah.
Start fighting all over the ring and the bell never actually rings for this one. I don't see a reason to just beat Sami. Not that it's like unheard of. You can obviously do it, but I don't see a reason to do it. And I think the story that they're telling is that everyone involved here is a little on edge right now. And since McIntyre jumped Sami and they already kind of fought backstage, I can see Sami getting a little aggressive and the match just never actually starts. And that's a way to kind of cut out that fifth match that I don't understand how they're doing that with less time than a traditional PLE.
I would say that should the match go ahead, and I'm going to go with the assumption that it does, then Drew McIntyre should win, because the whole story is he's back on a crusade against all the people that have aligned themselves back to Roman Reigns. And I guess the long-term prospect for that is the match with Roman Reigns down the line. I'd say not necessarily WrestleMania, but maybe like either Saturday night's main event or Royal Rumble, especially if Reigns does end up jumping over to Raw instead. So yeah, that's got to be the long-term aim, is that McIntyre's going after, took out Jey Uso, has got after Sami Zayn, and he's essentially saying, okay, I'm just going to take down the bloodline, or the OG bloodline, or the renewed version of like this collective that just decided to bow down at Roman Reigns' feet once again and just take them out one by one. So you probably should start that with him getting a victory over Zayn. But I think probably the long term is that they're probably just going to have a match at WrestleMania, probably. Because this was the plan last
Zayn
year.
And McIntyre, or yeah,
Zayn and McIntyre, yeah. Because that was the plan last year, was to do Zayn and McIntyre before a lot of things got in the way of all that stuff. And they ended up going with decided to play with the hot hand of like the McIntyre and Punk situation, and then push McIntyre into the world title picture, because probably the original idea was to do but potentially even like to do Seth versus Punk, and then McIntyre would be further down the card. But the way that the Royal Rumble happened, they decided, okay, McIntyre's short here at the moment, let's go with him instead. So yeah, I think they'll just do that match again this time. And I think that there's been like the long-term story that Sami Zayn's never beaten Drew McIntyre.
Has he? I don't remember.
Probably not.
Not that I recall. So I think that was like the big thing leading into it, was the idea that they'd have that match at WrestleMania, and that's where Zayn would finally get a victory over Drew McIntyre. But yeah, I think the McIntyre will win here anyway. And I think that there's I'd say it's not certainty in any stretch of imagination, but I think there's a strong possibility that this will also be the rest.
And there also is, if they don't want to just continue to do Zayn and McIntyre, even like, now, if they want to hold off till Mania, if they want to get it all out of the way now too, at some point they're going to clear Jey Uso to return to in-ring action. They made a point of specifically saying that he wasn't cleared this week, so maybe he gets involved in this match, maybe he pops back up a little bit closer to the Netflix debut. Maybe that's the match on Netflix. It's Jey Uso versus Drew McIntyre. Maybe that's the Saturday night's main event match. Like, at some point, Drew and Jey are going to have a match, whether it's an end game of Zayn or they're just killing time to do something else. And maybe there's a little bit of rumor, truth to that whole Wade Barrett thing, where it's like, I forget what had been the report and who reported it and when it was or whatever, but I know I saw something about it where it had said something about the idea of like they're pitching around the concept of like Wade Barrett versus Drew McIntyre at some point. And that could be a WrestleMania match too. If they want to just Drew feuds with bloodline-ish people until, I don't know, February. Oh, maybe Wade Barrett pops up in the Royal Rumble and they start something there or whatever too. But Drew is definitely like separating himself from the CM Punk thing, although still kind of tangentially related to it. So I don't think we're going to get Drew and Punk anytime soon. I don't think we're going to get Drew and Rollins, but they're all hovering the same area. So who knows if they end up doing some kind of a tag match or, whatever they do where they interact.
I just checked Cage Match just to see whether my statement was correct, and they've had 17 singles matches against each other since 2021, and Drew McIntyre's won all 17 matches.
I mean, it's interesting too. That was the launching point of Sami and the Bloodline. Remember, he was just doing the chicken shit heel thing, and 1 week had like a lumberjack match. It was just trying to get people on his side. And then that led to, well, we used you 1 week, we'll just keep using you, and then the magic happened. But it does all kind of come full circle in that way.
It's weird how things change and then how things stay the same while they're changing and not in the way that they were expecting it to change. And then you end up being like, oh, I like this better. And then that's like, well, I was the plan all along. And you're like, that's bullshit. No, it wasn't.
You're so full of shit.
Not at all your plan, but you rolled with it and we're okay with it now and all. Yeah, so if they decide to go in a different direction and all, I mean, for all we know, these two might split up as well. They might be on separate rosters by the time we get around to a week or two from now. And then that's the end of that feud, and Drew McIntyre's over there on SmackDown or something. I could see Sami Zayn moving over in a lot of ways. Kind of hope that they don't just do Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens going forward, but he did say we're going to cross that bridge when we come to it.
I was going to hold that till we talked about KO, but yeah, gun to my head, I think we're setting up for the ever original Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match, because he did make it clear. I haven't even touched on that yet, but we will. And I mean, if he's going to beat up Cody and Randy, there's no reason he shouldn't absolutely rip Sami apart for teaming with Roman Reigns.
Right. And
that's the hard thing. And I know they're trying to use that to their advantage with Rollins and Drew and Kevin, but yeah, they're right, and it's hard to like watch them be portrayed as the heels when it's so clear. Like, no, they're right. He did just snap his fingers and you all did just fall in line immediately. So I do hope that they do something with that. Look, if WrestleMania was one night and not, 2 7-hour shows, I wouldn't be against a Sami and Usos against KO, Rollins, and Drew as like a grudge match at a Mania or at a major event, because that's a fun match and it does make sense.
So I think that they're going to bounce this around this way, and then they're going to move over to the Women's World Championship match. Io Sky is going to be challenging Liv Morgan, and I didn't think that this was really up in the air up until they did something last night that made me go, okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. I have been going into this just going, all right, Liv Morgan retains. And Liv drops that title to Rhea Ripley, and we move on and whatever. Well, they keep not doing that. And it's been months of this where some of it was because of injuries and some of it was just the natural progression of the feud, but they could have done this title switch at Bad Blood. They could have done it on any episode of Raw afterward. They could have done it prior to Crown Jewel to do the whole thing we talked about before, where it would have made way more sense to do Rhea Ripley versus Nia Jax instead of Liv Morgan. They could have done it around Survivor Series, and they could have booked that match for Saturday night's main event, but they didn't. And with the Netflix show and the Saturday night's main event in January and the Royal Rumble, and then of course maybe they do some kind of special events in the meantime between then and Elimination Chamber and a little bit after Elimination Chamber, they do keep referring to Elimination Chamber as the final pay-per-view before WrestleMania, and that leaves a little bit of room for some, Liv Morgan drops the title to Rhea Ripley action. But now that they are teasing Io and Rhea, there's a possibility that Io beats Liv and that Rhea wins the Royal Rumble and challenges Io. I don't think it's going to happen, but there's more of a chance of it happening now, I think, than there was even, a week ago.
I'm sorry.
I'm still firmly in the Liv Morgan's retaining camp, but it could happen. And then we could be looking at this and going, all right, I guess that was their plan. And that's a weird way of doing it.
No, I love Io Sky. But if you think Io Sky is going to be in and around this championship by Mania, barring some major injuries and Becky Lynch just doesn't come back and Bianca just doesn't want to fight Rhea, I can't imagine that Io Sky is around this championship, let alone holding it going into Mania. Because, and I like the fact that they are setting up that Io could fight Rhea, because that's what you should do. Everybody should be like, no, I want to be champion. But I'm going to just guess that Ripley, if she doesn't win at the Rumble, she's winning on the first Netflix. Whoever wins, I do think it's Liv. I think what happened was, yes, they could have done this at any point between SummerSlam and now, and it feels like it's been too long, but the reality is they wanted to do that Judgment Day mixed tag in Germany, and they only really had the one match at Bad Blood. It's just, God, it feels like it's been so long. You know what I mean? It's only been one match, but it feels like it's been 25. And
about SummerSlam as well.
Well, yeah, but SummerSlam was you had to do the turn, Dominic turns, and that's where this really all begins on, okay, now Liv actually has Dom.
And you throw Raquel in there, and that's a means for it to kind of stretch out a little bit more. But now Rhea's beaten Raquel. And
you also have to remember, you said something about it being, you could have done this on any Raw. They made a good point to mention last night several times.
Yeah, that was
Rhea's first match since January on TV.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that's the norm moving forward. But if it's not, then we're in trouble, and we're going to get a lot more of these staggered out stories like this. But at the end of the day, I'm going Liv Morgan retains, drops it to Rhea on Netflix.
And they need something for Netflix. Like, that they're going to do something big. Whether that is, we're going to crown the first Intercontinental Champion for the women's division, or they do a title change with Liv Morgan dropping the belt to Rhea Ripley, or for all we know, they do like the Intercontinental title for the men or something, change his stance or something. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's between those two is something that's going to happen. But they could also switch Rhea around too. Like, we could get Rhea on SmackDown for all we know. And it could end up being like, all right, this Liv Morgan story is over with, and she brings the Women's World Championship over to SmackDown and gets completely away from her, and then Nia moves over to Raw, or any of this could happen. And if you pull one little piece of Jenga block, the whole thing could fall. You start moving one person around, you're going to have to move another person to balance it out, and then that person's in a relationship with this person or in a tag team or they're feuding with this person. It all starts, falling apart. There is a chance that Io is involved in this, but let's put it this way. I don't want to sound dismissive of Io. She's one of their best in-ring talents, but I can't see much of a chance that it's Io versus Rhea is the plan that they really want to do. And then they're going to just do especially not if it's Nia involved or something. I'm still firmly in the camp of Tiffany beats Nia for that belt at some point pretty soon. We get Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte or something. You got Bianca and Jade somewhere in the mix there. Now we've got 2 extra titles that we have to factor in. Maybe that gets them somewhere. There's still even a chance that it's Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, to be honest. I don't want that to be the case at all, but they could be trying to stretch that out to Mania too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the likelihood for this one is going to be that Liv Morgan retains. It's definitely not what I would do. I think that Sky versus Ripley is a far more compelling matchup, and I would definitely advise or push for that to take place over the continuation of this really tepid feud, which hasn't had a single decent match out of it or anything decent in general outside of potentially the Dominic turn. But yeah, I think that Liv's going to retain because they want to finish this off. I assume they'll switch the title for WrestleMania. I think that the likelihood is that Liv will either be fighting for the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania or kind of your traditional women's 4 tag team match for the tag titles.
Yeah, it could be Liv and Raquel fighting for the tag titles, and they kind of keep those together. It could be any number of different things, but I definitely don't think we're going to get any real strong Io versus Rhea stuff. It would be really strange to me if it's this Liv Morgan versus Rhea Ripley feud ends with Io just beats Liv, and then Rhea's all right, well, since you have the championship, we're going to have to go after you now. Io versus Rhea on paper, better match. I don't think they've got 5 months worth of build whatsoever. So
again, even if that does happen, I think it's happening as a one-off. I don't think it'll be a feud.
A Royal Rumble match or something,
or or Raw on Netflix.
Yeah. It could even be that they do Rhea versus Io #1 contenders.
I'll say this. What I think happens is, regardless of who's the champion, I think Rhea wins the belt on Raw, and as she's celebrating, Becky's music hits.
Becky's another whole person we have to factor in here. Is it just Becky versus Rhea at Mania, or is it, Becky? I mean, Becky could be the one that beats Liv. Liv could be somebody who's been, she took the title off of Becky. Maybe that's their game plan, is Becky is the one that takes it off of Liv, and we end up having Becky versus Rhea, or a 3-way or something. I don't know. But I don't think that the belt's going to change hands here, nor do I think that the WWE Championship is going to change hands either. Cody Rhodes against Kevin Owens, that's seemingly across the board going to be our main event here. And they dragged this out long enough. They got to this point. It needs to be the end of it. Kevin Owens has already lost. We know he's not going to be Cody. There's absolutely no way Kevin Owens holds this championship going into WrestleMania. And it seems pretty stupid that they would just give the belt to Kevin Owens and then have Cody win it back. It's superfluous at that point. So Cody retains. Either we just get him celebrating at the end of the show, and it's all right, well, it's Saturday night's main event, everybody, the good guy won, and let's count you out, and we're going to go cut the feed in 3, 2, 1. Or it's going to be Cody retains, maybe through some help from Randy Orton making his big return, and the two of them celebrate. Or there's a chance that maybe we get somebody popping up to attack Cody afterward in this big angle. I don't think it's going to be The Rock. I don't think that we're going to get some kind of like, and this is where Roman attacks Cody, and then it's going to be Roman versus Cody at Royal Rumble, or, anything that would be like this huge game-changing thing. I'm leaning more towards just Cody beats Kevin, and it's just, yay, babyface won. That's the end of the show.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the worst strategy. I'm really surprised they didn't go with Survivor Series, because as silly as it is, I thought the whole thing was going to be give KO a big match in Canada. And I think that's great. But I think there were other ways to use Cody. You could have started a new story or gotten him in a major tag match. Because at the end of the day, as we've talked about already, it's just Saturday Night's Main Event. It is just a show on NBC. You could have used it as a platform for other things. I'm against my personal wishes, guessing that at some point during the show we get a backstage where Kevin and Sami at least look at each other, and somehow this is all going to lead to Kevin goes even more crazy, and we're just getting back to Kevin and Sami somehow, because that's just, when in doubt, that's the feud you go to. I don't know where Cody goes from here. And it might be as simple as hit the pyro. We'll see you next time, everybody, because it does feel like they're basically going, hey, guys, Saturday Night's Main Event is this Saturday, and then we're on timeout until Netflix. So, can you just kind of deal with the next 2 weeks being chill because it's the holidays, and then we'll start fresh stories on January 6th? And that's kind of the vibe I get here. So I'm going Cody wins clean, and we just move on, probably.
I think that it is an out of the realm possibilities that Kevin Owens wins the title here. I would say that it's the more interesting outcome. I think storyline wise, it's a better outcome. Because I don't think that he'd hold the title very long. I don't think he'd hold the title past like Royal Rumble probably, but it adds another dimension to it. Maybe it's just me, like in my mindset these days, of just being sick of person holds title for way too long, goes through pretty meaningless feud after pretty meaningless feud. Cody hasn't really had. This is probably the most meaningful feud that Cody's had in his entire run as champion, or the one that's had the most energy and most vibrancy to it. Because he was temporarily involved with Bloodline stuff, but there didn't really feel like there was a lot of urgency to that one. Whereas this one feels more personal. It's got more animosity to it. So, and I think having Kevin Owens win the title briefly, drop it to Cody back at Royal Rumble, and then that's where you get like Randy Orton's involvement in. I think could just be a good spark for, okay, now it feels a bit fresher with Cody holding the title again, and then he's leading into WrestleMania having just won it back, and he's got this potentially whoever the Royal Rumble winner is to deal with, or whatever else, or somebody coming out of Elimination Chamber to face him. I think that would be a lot more interesting than just Cody wins and like the pyro goes off, and then we're just like sitting on our hands waiting for his inevitable retention at Royal Rumble.
To be clear,
stretching this out would be a more interesting thing with Kevin Owens holding the title for a short period of time.
And to be clear, I think you're 100% correct. I do think that's the more interesting outcome. I've talked a lot this year and last year about how they have to get away from, you can't lose the championship unless it's in a super important event, super meaningful way. You have to get away from only Mania and SummerSlam matter. I just don't think that they're stepping away from that. I would prefer Kevin Owens to win here, and then, Cody can just win it back at the Royal Rumble, because, like when Tony said, oh, I don't think Kevin Owens is walking into Mania as champion. Yeah, I don't think so either. But I don't think he has to lose here to avoid walking into Mania as champion. And that would be a really cool thing instead of, as Callum said, just sitting on our hands going, well, Cody's fighting, Damian Priest at the Royal Rumble, and we know he's not losing it to Priest.
Mhm.
I would love for it to be, oh shit, I don't know. Maybe he will lose it to whoever he fights at the Rumble. Maybe, Rhea Ripley doesn't beat Io Sky. I would love to get back to that era of anything can happen. Great example, DIY winning the titles from Motor Machine Guns on Friday, where it was like, oh shit, they actually just did an angle and had the Guns lose the titles, and now it's interesting as opposed to, okay, they had a good match and they shook hands and everybody's friends. I want more of that. So I would like to see Kevin win here. I just don't think they have the guts.
Yeah, and I think that this is the end of this feud. I don't know who Kevin Owens feuds with afterward, or for that matter, who Cody feuds with afterward. That whole thing with The Rock is still just like, is he doing Mania? Is he not doing Mania? If he is he fighting Roman? Is it for the title? Is it not? Is he fighting Cody? Like,
I think that if he's doing Mania, I think it'll be decided last second, just as this Mania was decided last second. Where it was like, oh, he actually wants to do it? Okay, shuffle the deck. I think that's what we're looking at here.
I'm well past the point of privileged people getting the opportunity to do whatever they want at any moment and everybody just changing everything else around for them. I think, I'd like to see plans for Mania put in advance and then for them to work on it, at least from SummerSlam onward for like the big matches. Like, I'm not anticipating that they go from Mania to Mania and book everything on the card and go, well, we pigeonholed ourselves in, it has to be these two for the Intercontinental title or something. But I do think you can't really be like looking at February and going like, all right, we're just about to do the Royal Rumble and we don't know what's happening for the top matches of Mania yet.
Look, to be fair, they've been doing that
too
for
long.
At least 5 years, if not, and that's probably being generous. It's probably been more like 10.
And sometimes it's worked out. And sometimes it's worked out and then immediately crashed afterward. Sometimes they've fallen ass backwards into something that worked, and then they try to pretend like that was the actual game plan, like the Daniel Bryan stuff. And then we've had other times where it's like, guys, come on. Look, I know we had an entire year to set things up, and we kept telling you to be patient until Mania season, but now that it's Mania season, we don't really have a whole lot. So can you guys just like be chill with it, and can you just go with the flow, and by next Mania we'll have it figured out. Like, I don't want one of those Manias. I don't want 41 to be doing that thing that happened for a little while now where we were like, it was a recurring thing where it was like, oh, every other Mania is good or like halfway decent or whatever, and then when you have a decent one, well, you know that the next one's gonna suck. Like, I forget when that started, but that was a trend for like a good while going on. I think it might have been like 20 something is when it started, of like 24 was pretty good. 25 had some real stinkers on it. I forget exactly the lineups of a lot of these cards, but
I think a lot of it, and it boils down to that kind of, hey, everyone knows everything now, so they try to use that to their advantage. Just be like, hey, not every WrestleMania can be amazing. Shut up.
not every show is WrestleMania, and not every WrestleMania is WrestleMania. But Kevin Owens is somebody that I really hope that, again, if you hire me on WWE Creative today and you tell me whatever it is that they have, maybe I change my mind. But if you hire me on Creative today and you don't fill me in on any big plans, I'm hoping that Kevin Owens loses this match. Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens completely split their separate ways. Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes is my WrestleMania match for the title. I'm going Rockin' Roman still. I'm going Kevin Owens should have some kind of a match that it matters at WrestleMania. But off the top of my head, I can't think of a single person that would be like, that guy versus Kevin Owens equals, that's the match I want for Mania.
And that's why everyone defaults to Sami Zayn.
Sami Zayn, could be LA Knight, could be multiple people mixed in with the Intercontinental or the United States titles, could be, if we are looking at the whole thing with The Rock against Cody at Mania and Roman versus Solo or some kind of crap like that, it could be Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens is their plan. I don't know. But I don't think we're looking at Cody dropping this title here whatsoever. I think it's more of a chance that we get some kind of big surprise with The Rock or something than we do with a title change. I'm going Cody retains, celebrates, happy-go-lucky, pyro goes off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Be sure to check out Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, that's probably the way I think it's going to work. And hopefully, look, I'll say this. Hopefully it's a fun show. I always liked the Saturday Night's main events. They're silly. They're fun. Jesse Ventura's on commentary. I'm hoping for a good time.
I'm glad that he's going to be on there. I'm curious to see who he ends up like focusing on. Like if he really does his homework and he's just kind of like, well, you know, the thing about Liv Morgan is or something, and you're just kind of like, well, you know a lot about Liv Morgan, don't you? You know, like, or if he's just, I really like this Meechin, if she's in the match or something. You're going Cody Rhodes retaining as well, right, Callum?
Yeah, I think that's probably what will happen, but I think it's the wrong move.
Well, that, of course, could potentially change. Anything to change. Card's always subject to that. But by the time we get around to the hot tags this week, we're still probably not going to know any other alterations to the card. They won't have done the SmackDown semifinals yet, so we'll still be in the same position there, but not knowing if it's Bayley or Tiffany Stratton or Chelsea Green or Meechin or whatever it is. If they do announce anything in the meantime, though, we will address that on the hot tags as per usual. If not, then the hot tags will just round out everything else we feel like talking about. Other stuff from Raw that we didn't touch on, whatever happens on NXT tonight. We got Dynamite tomorrow. We got whatever the other news cycle stuff ends up being. And then by the time we get to Saturday night's main event, we'll have coverage on smark.mova.com. I have the post show immediately following. And we'll talk about what we were right about, what we were wrong about, any other kind of good stuff, and any kind of bad stuff as well to go along with that. Now, Callum, are you treating this as a pay-per-view when it comes to the Fantasy League?
No.
Okay, you're not.
It's not a pay-per-view.
So, when we come to Fantasy League update type stuff, though, I filled everybody in a little bit on the stuff that we had done, but I believe we are still missing a couple little things. I mentioned that I had dropped the people that I had dropped and all, but I don't remember if I mentioned anything about what you guys did. Might as well talk about it right now. Why not?
I can update a little bit. So following Survivor Series, where Rob won the prediction contest, and so was able to make a few additional adjustments. So he ended up dropping Axiom from his team.
That was a mistake.
Which seems a bit foolish considering that they're still the tag team champions. And it ended up trading because due to his perk, he was able to trade one of his superstars with one of the people from either mine or Tony's team, depending on which one took his fancy. And so he swapped Roxanne Perez from my roster for Dominic Mysterio, so I now am in possession of Dominic Mysterio, which I feel kind of okay with. To be honest, I feel like I was worried that he was going to do a lot worse. He could have given me Charlotte Flair, because she doesn't seem like she's coming back any year now. It seems like she'll be back.
Look, I have faith in Charlotte.
So that's been those are Rob's main changes, bringing Perez onto the team and then dropping Axiom as his main one. And then in my team, I now have Dominic Mysterio, and I've kept Dominic Mysterio for the time being. I have dropped Kairi Sane entirely from my team because she wasn't doing too much, and then I traded for Shinsuke Nakamura. I can't remember off the top of my head who I traded him out for, but Shinsuke Nakamura is now part of my roster.
I do remember immediately saying that I was stupid for not picking up Shinsuke. Who did you pick up?
I can't remember. That was Shinsuke's the guy that I picked up. So,
I mean,
that was the only trade I could make. So,
you traded Kalani Jordan.
Oh, Cody Jordan. Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I don't think that she's now that she's no longer the mid-card NXT champion, I don't see her becoming a more prominent champion between now and the end of the year. So, but yeah, that's where we kind of are right now. So points-wise, let's do some quick calculations. So Tony is currently sitting on 764 points.
I think that there's an extra digit there, right?
Rob is sitting on 780 points, so only 18 points between you two. And then I'm currently on 880 points, so a bit of a distance ahead, another about 100 points ahead of that. So I'd say it looks a little like foregone at the moment, but Royal Rumble is always like a big up a lot of points because of the Rumble winners, and then got WrestleMania, we obviously double more points and things like that as well. It has closed up a little bit in the last couple of weeks, so I think there's still something to play for.
Man, I'm holding out that hope that Rhea Ripley title change happens on my team. I keep her around for a little longer. I gotta, I guess, sometime soon get rid of some of these other people like Tama Tonga, who's not really doing as great as I was hoping. But obviously, if you want to follow what's going on there, go to WWEFantasyLeague.com. You will see all the different updates to that. If you are bouncing around, though, make sure you go to amangotree.com. You'll find links to everything on the Fanboys Anonymous and Smark Out Moment spectrum, including just my own personal stuff at Tony Mango. And if you're following what I got going on and all, you should be following what Rob and Callum have as well.
Yep, follow me over at Dude Felice and check out my writing on Fightful, but also check out the cool stuff Callum does on Spark Out Moment.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at WigMaster14. You can check out the Power Rankings every Saturday over on SparkOut.com, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And as mentioned, there is the Fantasy League there as well, also at WWELeague.com to see how our teams are doing and whose roster's picking up points as we head towards the Royal Rumble as the next big stopping point for trades and all other roster updates.
Okay, everyone. You know the score. Drop your comments below. Hang around. Check back old episodes. Check up the whole lineup for this next week and everything that we got going on for the rest of this year at this point, because it's already middle of December. And start working on your AEW and WWE end of the year awards lists. I am about, I guess, like 75% done my WWE awards at this point, which was actually a lot harder than I thought it was going to be, just because how much I've been like out of it this year. And next thing I knew, I was like, oh my God, do I really have people in mind for best heel? Or like, do I really have people in mind for best catchphrase? I forgot about a lot of that stuff and started out the year with a lot of notes. And then I looked at my notes and I'm like, wow, these notes really disappeared in April. It kind of just became a harder thing to track, but I'll be pushing that along. We'll be recording that soon, uploading that. And then, of course, if you are on that early advanced access tier, then you'll get early access to those. But in the meantime, we do have another episode of the Hot Tags coming your way. We also have the Pay-Per-View-Point post show for Saturday night's main event. So at least for this week, 2 more episodes, and then we'll see you then. Adios for now, though. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and we're being counted out.